The duckling Putin will fall on Xi's order. A Putin double has been sent to China. These shots are truly shocking. Ukrainian forces have broken through into Crimea. Russia's land corridor is now a road of death. Putin launched the Oreshnik at Ukraine, and a nuclear Iskander hit Belarus. The Vobazgi project. We are starting. Putin, or rather the bunker dweller, has almost disappeared from Russia. His new record is 196 days. This is a pause in his trips around the regions. He hasn't had such a break even during COVID. So let's make a note of that. The publication Agency reports that Putin has not left Moscow for 196 days. Almost 200 days without a single trip around Russia. The nasty little Putin mostly hangs out in the Kremlin or sometimes in Novo Ogaryovo. And do you know why? We know how it will all end, but we will not be issuing any official public announcements regarding this matter. Why not? We will. Putin will be killed soon. And that's exactly why the nasty little Putin doesn't leave the Moscow region. Of course, you might say, what do you mean Putin doesn't leave Moscow? He was just recently embarrassing himself in China with Xi Jinping. Huh?
Where are we going with the nasty Putin? It's a big, big secret, and we won't tell anyone about it, not at all.
Well, friends, let's be honest. Are you sure that it was the actual Vladimir Putin who met with Xi Jinping in faraway China? Considering the information from a reliable source that he hasn't really left Moscow for over 200 days, maybe it was this mysterious creature that met with Xi Jinping in Beijing. The so-called Putin, who looks like a carpenter from Belarus, flew to China to see the master of Russia, Xi Jinping. Yevgeny Vasilievich will be crying on Xi's shoulder. So the so-called Putin, Yevgeny Vasilievich. What is even going on? Let's listen to someone who knows, a professional. Allow me to introduce you to Dmitry Popov, a psychologist and profiler who has been closely and thoroughly observing the Kremlin dictator for a period of more than 10 years now. So Popov very confidently and knowledgeably asserts and maintains the following.
I have an entirely unbiased and objective personal impression that it was indeed a body double taking place in Beijing.
Wow, how interesting. So it turns out that Xi Jinping was presented with a Putin impersonator in China, while the real Putin, hysterical from the blow dealt by the armed forces of Ukraine, is hiding in a bunker. But here, the whole picture that emerges is truly astonishing. It turns out that in May, several Putin doubles appeared at once. Let's continue listening to Dmitry Popov.
From May 18th to the 20th of this year, we saw 3 different versions of Putin. On the 19th or perhaps the 18th of May, one of these Putins gave a very nice and elaborate video address to our Chinese friends where, excuse me, when I watched all of this unfold, I didn't really see the real Putin there. Instead, I saw a big rough tongue metaphorically licking everything Chinese. Well, and quite probably President Xi Jinping himself got included in that display too. That is, it was all just about how Russia admires, loves, respects, and in general will do anything for China. Just help us.
A brief lyrical digression. Here I completely agree with Dmitry Popov. Just listen to how yet another Putin double on the signal from his original humiliates himself before Xi Jinping and the entire Chinese people. This is the very moment that Popov is actually talking about.
To all my dear friends in China, I send you my warmest greetings. I am truly delighted to visit Beijing once again at the kind invitation of my longtime good friend, Chairman Xi Jinping of the People's Republic of China.
What a disgrace. Well, never mind. Let's continue listening to the profiler. This is very interesting.
As early as the 20th of this month, there was a particular man living in China who bore a striking resemblance to Putin. This man was also at the parade on May 9th this year.
So, just so I don't sound unfounded, here is a very telling photo for you, worth 1,000 words, so to speak. So on the left is Putin's double, who appeared in Beijing and met with Xi Jinping. He is also called the chewed-up or puffy one. And on the right is the Putin impersonator during the address to the Chinese people, which you have already seen and which was recorded in the Kremlin. This so-called Putin has a wider lower jaw and a distinct tendency for his chin to swell when he's afraid. Well, obviously he is afraid of the armed forces of Ukraine or perhaps of medications, which we are also fully aware of.
Vladimir Vladimirovich, hello. I am a student and I study at St. Petersburg State University. I want to ask, is it true that you have many doubles?
No, seriously, you have to admit these are really two different people. In fact, this is already a sign of Kremlin agony. They have body doubles for their domestic audience, and then there are Putin lookalikes intended for international export. They've completely lost their minds.
But I thought about it very carefully and decided that only one single person should look just like me and speak with my very own unique voice. And that person will be me.
Yeah, right, as if we'd believe that. Now listen to my colleague Alexei Lichtman, who conducted his own investigation as part of the Short and Clear project. There are a lot of very interesting details here.
The effect of a puffed-up face is clearly visible. You see, the cheeks of the Russian leader look unnaturally round, kind of sagging at the bottom and shifted toward the jawline. Because of this, there's a noticeable visual effect of a swollen, puffed-up face, which is sometimes associated with fluid retention in the body, or, for example, with medication, cosmetic procedures, or alcohol. If it's a body double, why not?
Pay special attention to Putin's chin and neck. In these shots, you can see that the shirt collar is literally digging into his neck, making it look swollen and massive. Meanwhile, the lower part of his face appears less defined, as if it's losing its clear contours. By the way, in Beijing, there were even more fascinating changes in the facial expressions of the nasty little Putin. What do I mean by that? Here, for example, is a photo where Putin is making a very unusual grimace for himself, trying to purse his lips. This emphasizes the unnatural volume in the lower part of his cheeks. And here's what's especially interesting. The Telegraph has utilized artificial intelligence to examine and analyze Putin's appearance and how it changed in just a few days, both during his formal address to the Chinese people and during his personal meeting with Xi Jinping. And here's what the ever-present AI draws attention to. In the footage from May 18th, where Putin is delivering an address from the Kremlin, his face has a completely different, more elongated and gaunt structure. Here, his facial contour is more defined, and there is no swelling in his cheeks. Additionally, Putin's neck, look, it appears thinner, right? And you can notice this by the shirt collar, which sits loosely here and doesn't squeeze the neck like in the photos from China. So, alright, but here a logical question arises. Did Grandpa Xi even realize that it wasn't exactly Putin who came to visit him? I think Xi gave his consent to this. Without his consent, this wouldn't have happened. But in reality, Xi doesn't really care who negotiates with him. The question is, what will be agreed upon? What kind of agreements will be made? Absolutely right. Putin wanted to sign some kind of agreement on the construction of this Power of Siberia 2, but Xi Jinping doesn't need that. He's only willing to sign some nonsense with the double, something that means nothing at all. By the way, they say that the bunker imposter was compelled to undergo medical testing before Grandpa Xi's visit, just to get checked. Because in China, they are not very fond of people who are infected. The SVR general also reported that before flying to China, the double underwent a medical examination by several Chinese doctors who allowed him to meet with Xi Jinping after making sure that as of yesterday, Vasilich was not infected with bubonic plague or any other dangerous viruses or bacteria. And to wrap up the topic, they say Putin has another double now nicknamed Kartavi, the Lisp. He definitely has trouble with the letter R.
Shout it out loudly so that everyone can hear. Rah, rah, rah.
Well, in general, you get the idea. The real Putin is sitting terrified in his bunker and continues to make a mess for the whole world. So the Kremlin officially announced that Russia has reported the first case of transferring non-strategic nuclear weapons to military units during the current exercises. That's right, in Belarus.
A sudden inspection of the nuclear forces was carried out. The troops and forces have been brought to full combat readiness. The delivery and issuance of nuclear warheads to Russian and Belarusian units designated for the combat use of nuclear weapons has been carried out.